Yeah.
there's a right way and a wrong way to do surveying, and if it's not systematic and it's not well thought out, you could be asking questions that actually harm you, versus those that can add value to your
Yeah.
organization. So, oftentimes, I will utilize statisticians or people who focus, and that's what they do professionally, is provide surveying to kind of get ideas on what to look for.
So all of our testimonials now in our company are experience and character based, and it's epic. I love doing it this way. Conversions are great. They've never been better. And I've removed a massive chunk of legal risk because the FTC is out there again and again and again issuing different press releases and letting you know results-based testimonials are like the bane of their existence. That is the door they use to get in. So let's talk about typical claims. How do you establish typicality of a result? So if you want to use testimonials that share the results, specific results that your customers are getting, how do you do that? How can you establish that? And it just so turns out the FTC thought and heard that we were going to do this episode. So a couple of days before this, they released some press releases to help us out and give us some material that clarifies their stress on the word typicality. They issued an interesting report. It kind of felt to me like it was out of left field. So we're going to ask our handy dandy attorney here today, Greg, why they would do that. It just came out of the blue. It was just like, hey, it felt like this random FYI memo that they did this study on MLMs, multi-level marketing companies, and here's what we found. And I'm like, they don't do anything over there without a purpose. Like, that just seems too random. So I'm curious. So we're going to talk about this recent report they released about multi-level marketing companies and how that specifically talks to the idea of typicality, and then how you as a company can stand a chance at actually establishing typicality in your results. So without further ado, back from court or judging or doing something is Mr. Greg Christiansen, our handy dandy 20+ year compliance attorney who reads cases for fun. How about that? Greg, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. How are you doing? It's almost a
I'm
week.
doing good.
It's a short week. I like it.
Short week. All right. Okay, so let's break this down. But before we even do that, everybody, the affiliate program for Complyly is up and running. It's at Complyly, COMPLILY.com/affiliate. And the affiliate program for Don't Say That is about to be announced any minute. Follow me on social media. Make sure you're on our email list, and we'll let you know. That means this is the first time. Hey, you can now officially help support us and help promote this mission. We need all the help we can get. All right? So please come on and support us. And if you haven't got the book yet, I don't know what you're doing. You got to grab the book, don'tsaythat.com/go. People are loving it. We're selling a ton of them. Ads are doing great. And Compliant Academy, make sure you join that at compliantacademy.com. And then, of course, complyly.com. Make sure you enroll there. By the time this episode comes out, our freemium feature is up, so you can run a quick scan for free to see what your score is, 2,000 words, create an account, and also be opened up the monthly payment plan now. So you can come in for as little as $100 a month. There is no reason you're not partaking. So with that said, Greg, before we talk about typicality, I have a question. You've been tracking the FTC for 20 years. You read all of these things. It felt so out of the blue. When they make statements like this and when they issue press releases like this, is this sometimes a peak of what is to come?
Well, it just shows you the mentality of where the commission's at. And I know a lot of you are not in the direct sales space or the MLM space, and maybe see, why would this even have any significance for me? I'm just a online e-commerce marketer, or I'm a infomercial marketer. I just do YouTube videos. Why should I care what direct sellers? I can glean information from any case. And what this tells me is the FTC is looking very hard on any company and the way they're making earnings type claims or representations. Does it come out of the blue for me? No, it doesn't surprise me. If you look back to the Herbalife and the Avocare case that the FTC brought in the last few years, they were all about representations about making money. Now, in Herbalife, something that was really interesting was they weren't actually on stage representations made by Herbalife itself. It was their affiliates. I mean, you can call their downline their affiliates, but that's what I call them. They're in IBOs or associates or independent business owners or whatever you want to call them. They were getting online and they were talking about how much money they were making with the opportunity. Same thing with Avocare. Avocare is this $1 billion company that had a MLM direct sales, or part of their organization. FTC came in, sued. They shut the whole thing down. They let go tens of thousands of independent business owners within a day, and they just did a traditional business where they're just doing e-com sales for their products and services.
But
So
I guess, Greg, the question I meant more was,
yeah,
because if they issued this report, right, where they went deep into researching what the average person at an MLM actually makes, how many people buy MLMs in the country, and all of this, does that mean that they're in the weeds researching these companies? And so does that mean there's a bunch of cases that might be coming soon because they have all the data? I guess that's what I'm asking. Is it usually kind of a preview of what's to come?
I think so. I mean, anything the commission does has some sort of emphasis behind it. They wouldn't spend the time and effort and resources to do something without like the next step. So it wouldn't surprise me if they have a list of target companies that they're going to look at. Now, what I was trying to say is, well, this isn't, I'm not a direct seller, Greg or Onik. I don't know. How does this apply to me? Well, it applies because if you look at what the numbers say, it's really telling when you're trying to base the typicality of experiences. And maybe you're not familiar with the MLM world, but I used to represent an MLM. And one of the documents they have to give, there are two documents, primary documents they have to give when people are signing up. The first is called a compensation plan that outlines just like, hey, this is what you should expect to make and how you make money if you join us. The second document is called a disclosure statement. And that document, what it is it goes through and explains to prospective individuals what the success rates and how much they should expect to make if they join the opportunity. So what the FTC did this week, and they published this on Tuesday, was they went through 70 different, publicly available disclosure statements, and they found that they ranged anywhere from participants showing most participants made less than $1,000 total, and many of them made less than $84 a month total. And so they came out and said, hey, there's a lot, and they broke it down in the report. They broke down like the percentages. So how does this apply to us? Well, one shows that they're really focusing in on earnings, right? Globally, across the board, regardless of industry. Two, we can say, if we're not providing a product or service that has an opportunity, that if we portray it to be an opportunity that's going to generate revenue, and obviously these companies a neighbor, a friend, a family member that's part of an MLM somewhere, and it's always hype up, happy, let's come on, do this, make a ton of money. But at the end of the day, most of the time, the average participant doesn't make any money. The FTC is focusing on them. They have for years, but they're really starting to focus, which means if your ads, your offers, whatever you're doing is focusing on that, but you don't have any documentation to show the typicality of the customer's experience, it's a lay down win for the FTC. These companies at least have done the work about the typicality, and they disclose it to their prospective purchasers. So the FTC is basically shaming them by saying, hey, you think that everybody makes a lot of money doing this. Well, the fact is most people who do direct sales don't make any money or very little money at all. So buyer beware. You going out and saying, hey, look at all these testimonials of people who've used my service and how much money they've made, but you don't have the raw data. You haven't spent the time and effort and resources to get that typicality. But you're out there presenting a message, creating the net impression that people are making money. It's going to be a lay down win for them, for sure.
Okay. So, we've talked multiple times in the past about like body.com, I think that's their name, and how they establish typicality.
Yeah.
Let's go through. I know it's not easy, and I know you're going to say it's not easy, but let's talk about a company that sells a course on how to make money online. How do they establish typicality? Of course, there's a bunch of people that are never going to do it, but how do they track the ones that, okay, if they completed the 90-day program, how do you as an attorney, if I came to you and said, I'm gung-ho, insistent, I need to establish typicality and understand it, how would you what would you tell the person to do?
Well, it's very difficult for a company to go back and try to backtrack to get that data. Chasing the tail on it is really difficult. Like, so what I mean by that is you have a group of maybe you've been in business for 5 years and you've got 10,000 clients and you want to go and figure out of those 10,000 clients what the typical result is. And so you go back to those 10,000 clients and you start asking, well, they're in various levels of participation with your company. You may have 30% that you don't have any communication with anymore. You may have 30% who you are infrequently will communicate with you. You'll have, so that leaves you with about 40% that you can, or by done, yeah, 40% where you can go and see if you can get that data. And of those 40%, just a fraction of them are going to respond to you. One, they're going to say, what I make through this is none of your business. And two, they may have some issues with the underlying product that they're just like, we don't want to participate. So when you go back to clients to try to grab that, that's why a lot of times clients will go and they'll say, how do I figure out what the typical experience is, Greg? And I'll say it's very tough and it's very expensive after the fact because of the response rates. Now,
So real quick, so on that. So it's not enough to just send out some surveys, wait for the responses back, and to say, hey, based on the surveys, average person. So you're saying you have to make a very conscious effort to reach out to each and every one, and it's like a very individualized process, and you're going to have a bunch that don't respond. Let's say I do have 1,000 customers, and I'm going to reach out to 1,000. Of course, let's just assume out the gate, 50% of them don't even reply because they've moved on to different parts of their life. What, as an attorney, how many would need to apply before you felt comfortable saying, hey, I think there's enough here, substance enough here to be able to defend typicality? Is it half? Is it 70%? Is it 20%? Like, rough ballpark.
I think at least 10% need to respond. I think you've got to look at national statistics of what people do when they respond to surveys. And I would say that most people don't respond to surveys because they don't like them. I don't like them. So if you had 10% of 1,000 that responded, you probably could glean some information from that. But then you'd have to go to those individuals and you'd have to get substantiation for all the statements they're making to figure out whether it's really typical or they're just making things up. That can be difficult too. But 10% is a good test. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying it's, if you can get more than that, that's great. But then I would disclose it to the consumer. So if you're like, hey, we've done a study, we hit 1,000 of our customers to request this information. Of the 100 that responded, we found that these were the average results, and we break it out. 20% didn't do anything at all. They made zero money. 30% were able to break even on their investments. And then we've got 50% of them that made between $1,000 to $5,000 or whatever the results say. But you're disclosing what the body of the sample size is and what you did to try to get it. We reached out to 1,000 clients. We got 10% of them responded. Of the 100 that responded, this is what we found their typical results were. So you qualify. You set the tone. Transparency is the key element to this. You want to make sure that the client understands exactly how you formulated everything in the first place so they can come up with a determination themselves whether, hey, this is valid, statistical data that I can rely on. Versus I've had clients come to me before and they've done 20,000 clients. They send out the surveys. They get 10 people to respond. Happens to be those 10 people did really well. And they're like, well, this is the response to the surveys. I'm like, that's not an accurate and fair representation as to what the typical experience is. This is just, you'd have to say only 5 of 10,000 responded and this is what their results were. That doesn't, well, no statistician to say, hey, that's a good sample size.
I think a key part of what you said was you also have to go back and substantiate it. So just because you do get 100 responses, and let's say those 100 responses are positive, the hard work is not yet done. Now you got to go back and prove the fact that what they said is actually true. So it's like, it's a lot of work to go backwards. I see that now. I had forgotten about the substantiation part. I was like, why can't we just do a survey and be pretty aggressive about it? But it's like, oh, just because someone answered some way doesn't mean you can use that data.
Right.
So Greg, let's say I come with all this, right? I come with all this information and I work with you as an attorney, and I'll just pick on you for a minute. How, for a company to feel comfortable to use results-based testimonials, do they get like a memo from an attorney that says, "Hey, I, Greg Christiansen, reviewed all the la 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 la, and I feel that, my guess is you're already laughing. My guess is you probably would never give that." So how do I, as a company, feel comfortable saying like, or is it just like, "Hey guys, I did this study and I feel comfortable saying this is my typical result, and I'm open to the idea that a regulator may contest me on it."
Well, I mean, the FTC has a lot of guidance on their websites that they talk about typicality. I think they've got like 30 pages that talks about different ways you can substantiate claims and how to come up with typicality with those claims. Not that that's always helpful because they're always in different areas and fields. But what I advise clients to do is to look and see what the actual results are first and see if it's anything that you would want to share with the clients in the first place. Unfortunately, there's some clients that come to me, they will get 10% to respond, but the results are so porous that they're just like, there's no way we can share that this is their typical result. It's going to look like one of these MLM disclosures that most people make under $80 or whatever when they join. And so, okay, well, that's what we're getting for the sample size. Is that something we really want to risk showing? Second, maybe they do the survey, they get a decent sample size and it looks decent, and so they want to chase it down. Well, then you have to follow up with everybody else, and then you have to be comfortable. And there's degrees of comfortability. Like if you get 1,000 people and you only get 10%, and the results are kind of mixed bag, where you have some people make money, but some people that don't do anything at all, are you comfortable with that? Are you comfortable with it? Where maybe if it's 10, 20% that responded and it's better numbers, or 30%, I would say with a client that had a 30% response rate from a survey and had decent results, you'd want to flesh that out, because if you have that could be really good substantiation. I mean, the FTC wants you to know what your typical avatar or customer experience is anyway. So that's what to do. But
Yeah.
harder to go back for sure.
Yeah, I want to really push this for people, is that I remember during my case, they were really, 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 really stuck on surveys. Give us feedback, give us data, show us. And then when I went in and I presented to them in person, we did a 1-hour presentation. Two of them, there was like 5 of us, and I was the one presenting. I'll never forget that my whole presentation finishes. It was 45 minutes or something, and it was a really good presentation. It really made my case strong. And we're done, and I'm like, all right, hit me with some questions. Let's go. Like, this is going to be good. And in my presentation, mid-slide, like mid-somewhere, I had said, hey, we were just about to start doing customer-centric surveys to like start really... And they just heard the word survey, and I finished, and I was like, any questions? They're like, yes, you mentioned surveys. Do you have surveys? Because we're looking at your discovery, and we don't see any surveys returned over. Do you have surveys? You said surveys. Survey. And I'm like, relax, like, that was me saying that we were about to put them into action, into place. But you could tell, like, that was like, bing, like ears perked up. They really wanted to see that, and unfortunately, we hadn't done them, and that did count against us, because they look at you and say, how can a legitimate business not know what their customers are doing or experiencing? I would, on that regard, also encourage people to do your surveys through your attorney, so that you have the benefit of having them be attorney-client privileged.
Yeah. I mean, there's a right way and a wrong way to do surveying. And if it's not systematic and it's not well thought out, you could be asking questions that actually harm you, versus those that can add value to your organization. Yeah. So oftentimes I will utilize, statisticians or people who focus, and that's what they do professionally, is provide surveying to kind of get ideas on what to look for. And it's very valuable to do that.
Okay, so looking back, Greg, is tough and expensive and arduous, and most of the time won't lead to any good results. Have you actually ever done one in your 20 years of experience where you looked back and came out with something that was very positive?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of money. Like I mentioned, I had a client that we retained, a third-party survey client, like SurveyMonkey or one of the other ones, that came in, helped devise questions that were specifically catered. They started phase one of going back and issuing the surveys. Then they took the people who responded to those surveys, and then they had customer support agents get on the phone and try to text and call to get them on the phone to talk to them about their results. And then it was a process. Through that process, they were able to determine some of the typicality of the people who had responded to the surveys and would respond to their communications. The problem was with this company or this client that I represented it just, at the end of the day, only a fraction of the people who purchased ever responded. So the ultimate decision was made is it just wasn't enough to be a good defense if somebody was going to question it. Even though we liked the data that we found, we just decided, hey, it was too much of a risk. So they didn't use typical earnings as part of their advertisements. So it's just difficult to go back. And then they spent money.
So, Greg, let's take 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. Let's talk about going forward, right? So, obviously, these MLM companies are publishing it. They have the data, but they're also it's easy for an MLM company to track this data because they're the ones transacting the money, so they have access to all the data. But, like, if I'm selling a course and I don't know what you're doing, you're out there, I have no way of knowing. But, like, so then if we can't go backwards, what do you suggest going forward?
I always think the better approach is to implement as a part of your process, your onboarding process with your client is a system and means to collect data from them from the beginning. And so you mentioned earlier Beachbody was their former name. The way they do it is brilliant. You sign up for P90X, you immediately get onboarded. You got 90 days to do this, but then you have what they call check-in points or journaling. You got to check in through that 90 days. And really, what are they doing? Pictures of you on a scale, pictures of you just, in various forms of dress and exercise, going through so that they can say, hey, the most successful individuals who participate are the ones that actually do the work, and they track and hold themselves accountable by having commitments. Oh, we're going to help you with that by having check-ins where you're going to provide us data points throughout the process so we can see how your journey is going. Well, really what they're doing is they're following and tracking typicality from the very beginning with those clients. Now, many of you may not have a weight loss or weight, type of, or health type of offer. You may have an earnings type of offer. They come and learn how to do high ticket sales or sell Amazon's, products on Amazon or whatever it is. So you've got to find a different means of what you're really tracking. But if you do it from the beginning and the onboarding looks like this, it's like, hey, Bill, Jill, whoever you are, we find that if you hold yourself more accountable, that you're more committed to the course. And so we have embedded certain checkpoints for you and certain, assignments for you to check in with us. And so and you lay it out to them in the beginning, and then you follow up with emails or texts. Hey, it's time for your check-in. Make sure you put the data, or they can get an app where it pops up. Hey, fill in your results today. And then you're just collecting data through the whole process. And you have a built-in substantiation component in that. After 30 days, all of your clients, well, let's say maybe not all of them, but maybe 50% of your clients are following through on this, and you're tracking the data. That gives you a better ability to figure out what your typical student is doing with their course.
Oh, makes sense. All right. So there you have it. For those of you who ask us about typicality, it is a challenging world. Now, if you ask me what I've done, I just walked away from it. It's results are not something I want to play with. I don't want to work on. I don't want to even market with results because it brings the wrong type of customers in. Substantiating them, having that, and increased legal liability, and all of it's just not worth it. So all of our testimonials now in our company are experience and character-based, and it's epic. I love doing it this way. Conversions are great. They've never been better. And I've removed a massive chunk of legal risk because the FTC is out there again and again and again issuing different press releases and letting you know results-based testimonials are like the bane of their existence. That is the door they use to get in. It's what they use with me. At this point, you can't complain because in the sense of they're very open about it. They keep issuing new press releases saying this is what we look at. So Personal opinion, go to general, go to experience, and character-based testimonials. And of course, grab a copy of the book, Don't Say That, and make sure you read it and absorb all of it. Join us at Compliant Academy. There you go. Greg's got his. Greg's read the book too and learned a lot from it.
Greg wrote the book, bro. I mean, like, yeah.
Greg's reading the book and going, damn, I'm really smart. This is good stuff.
Said this is happening.
Compliant Academy, if you want more, if you want the certification program, you want the 33 pre-written, basically mostly done disclosures, contracts, and things that you need to help protect you, and tons more, and my own compliant marketing course. All of this, if you want, go right now to compliantacademy.com. And, of course, head on over to complyly.com, COMPLILY.com, if you just want an automated AI-powered software that can help review and do all of these things for you. Listen, I was doing a demo for Greg. His paralegal was on, and she was blown away. I haven't seen if she's using it yet, but we got her an account. I think she was very happy with it. If she's very happy with it, imagine how much it can help you. So, don'tsaythat.com. compliantacademy.com, complyly.com. This is Onyx Segal here with Greg, reminding you, if you want to be a giant, go compliant, and when life pushes you, stand straight, smile, push it the heck back. We'll see you on the next podcast. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Greg. Bye.